Hey guys and gals, welcome to the 813 high school baseball team reveal. Jarrett Guthrie, 813preps.com, Jay Retcher, 620 WDAE. And Jarrett, we've been doing this all season, man, and we've seen some really good baseball out there. It's going to be fun. We got a lot of names to talk about for sure.
Yeah. We definitely covered the entire area. If you'll notice behind us, we did a little PowerPoint graphic. Keeping it all 1999 on you, and so we'll announce first our Defend10, our area Gold Glove, if you will, of 10 standout defenders. Then we'll reveal our second team, our first team, and our award winners, including Coach of the Year, Pitcher of the Year, Hitter of the Year, and our MVP.
Yeah, man, got some good awards going out there, and let's just kind of preface this whole thing is, we're doing this to give some of the other players in the county some love.
Absolutely.
So, we know there's going to be debate when there's things like this, but let's just keep things in perspective here of we're doing this to show the boys some love, show the coaches some love, and something that we took time out of our day to do. So, if a guy doesn't make first team or second team or he's on honorable mention, let's not take it personal. It's not about that. I think it's really good to talk about that. We put a lot of time and effort into this, and it's not just stats on stats. We've reached out to some coaches too to get some of their input as well, and to just kind of get an idea of what players were the most important to their team. So don't look at numbers and be like, oh, this guy batted 10 points higher than this guy, because there's a lot that goes into it. We take a lot into consideration. A guy that plays in the same district as the Jesuit and Jefferson, maybe their average holds a little bit more weight than if they played in another district where they played against some other competition. So let's just keep things in perspective, and let's just remember why we're doing this, and it's for all the kids. So let's start with the Defend10 team. This is something that we kind of came up with just looking at like some of the best defenders in the 813, and we took it from some of the coaches' perspective and some of the guys that they've seen that were difference makers throughout the year. And then between all the games, between you and I, we probably covered 100 games this year. You'd have to nowhere close?
Way over.
Way over. Yeah. I was like, 100 too much?
Yeah. We did a lot.
We did a lot.
Yeah, 100's probably a good number.
Okay, so the first guy up for the Defend, did you do one guy at a time? What'd you do here, Defend10?
No, the Defend10, there are a lot of graphics, so the Defend10 got condensed down to 2 graphics. I tried to get everywhere and take photos, and just because I don't have a photo doesn't mean I didn't take one. Mm-hmm. But, at some point, the PowerPoint presentation became an animal of its own.
That's all right. You did a good job, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Well, we start off here with a couple guys, that you look at. We'll start with Danny Guthrie. Mm-hmm. A lot can be said about this year's catchers. There were a ton of catchers that hit.
A lot of good catchers.
Yeah, just hit incredibly well or played really great defense. Danny Guthrie is a guy who just is a total package player. Personality, smarts, leadership. And then what he does defensively is outstanding. So Danny Guthrie is the first member of our Defend10.
Yeah, and he's just an incredible kid, and something that we talked about when we met last week. The first guy there, the last guy to leave. Yeah. You want to talk about a guy that went from being a sophomore on a state championship team, dealing with a lot of older kids, and they're respecting him, and then going into a senior year and having to catch one of the best young pitchers around in Austin Grouse. So really want to talk about the whole gamut of emotion as a high school baseball player. Danny Guthrie, no more deserving, and one of the best. You're not running on that guy for sure.
For sure. One of the next people we'll list is Tanner Kelly from Strawberry Crest. Crest obviously was won their first ever district and region titles this year. And Tanner was a guy that Coach Eric Beatty was able to point to and move him all around the field. And he played some outfield, he played some first base, he played some third base, and was just outstanding wherever he was put on the field.
Yeah, good kid, good bloodline. His dad, Rod Kelly,
Sure.
Good buddy of mine, and one of the best players that you're going to see at a UT. Just a really good dude overall, Strawberry Crest. And when they made that adjustment, when they bring in Damian Torres and they'd have to slide Barone over to third and slide Kelly in from center to first base, he did it seamlessly. A great call by Coach Beatty, and when you have guys like Tanner Kelly, it's easy to make those changes.
Absolutely. Next up, Trying to move my shoulder a little bit so you can see it, but
there you go.
I don't want to cut out the moneymaker. I don't want to cut out the moneymaker. Is Plant Senior Chase Sanguinetti? Chase is I think a 3-year starter for Plant, and just picks it. I mean, I remember the first game they played against Sickles at home, and I just remember him scooping some really great throws across from shortstop and third base, and just a really, really solid defender, a Florida State commit.
Yeah, some guy that you would, when you look at some of the good players that they had this year, with Brock Fagler and Connor Scott, some guys we'll talk about later on. Chase, I think, sometimes got maybe forgotten, but that's a guy that, you're right, though. He's a guy, when you think about the first baseman in Hillsborough County, he was a guy that comes to mind, that not just with the bat, but also on the field.
And then just an absolute favorite guy to watch for me, John Chicalito Santos from Leto High School. A second baseman, just a remarkable... I mean, in a defense that had tremendous...
Yeah, you could have put a couple of guys on their team.
And we might have.
Yeah.
We might have.
Still another page coming up.
Yeah. He's a little guy. When you see him come to the plate, he's generously listed around 5'6", 5'7", maybe 120 pounds, maybe.
You're saying it, not me. But
yeah,
you're
okay.
Right, but you're right, though. Every time you go to a Leto game, though, Chicalito is in the middle of something.
And he hits.
Defensively, he's fast as hell. And just the combination of him and Muniz up the middle, I mean, they're a joy to watch. Chicalito, a perfect guy for this all Defend10 team.
And a guy who... was on a team that had a tough year, Jermaine White.
Yes.
I don't know, if you got to see Jermaine all that often. Tremendous speed and a pretty good read of balls, a really good arm, and just, consistently produced for Coach Matt Stahlbaumer in his final season as the head coach there at Brandon.
Yeah, I got a chance to hang out with Jermaine a little bit at the Hillsborough, the All-Star Classic at Tropicana Field, and the guy was he could fly, man. That guy can absolutely run. You're right. With B.J. Carter on the mound, they had one of the better pitchers around, but he did such a good job, Jermaine, this year. It was always like whenever Brandon did well, Jermaine was a big reason for that.
Yeah. And I want to point this out, a favorite photo I took this year.
Point it out.
Behind you, Jay, of Jermaine.
I like that, man.
That's
jacked up.
That was a triple E hit. I think that was against. I don't want to say
somebody.
Yeah, it was
one of the games.
Somebody. I saw a lot of games, so I can't remember exactly which one. All right, we ready for our next one?
What's next?
We continue with our Defend10, and let's start with another of the Class 8A state semifinalists, Ryan Dell, the shortstop. Yes. At Strawberry Crest. I told people whenever they would listen, I had a wow moment.
Did you have a man crush on Ryan Dell?
You know what? Defensively, absolutely. I'll let Ryan Dell play on any team I ever watch, because I would have a wow moment in almost every game I saw. It was a tough state final to watch because Strawberry Crest was so great defensively the whole year, and I think it was a big stage that they were young and they weren't necessarily 100% ready for that game, and it was.
It happens. I mean,
it does. Absolutely. You have bad games. It's baseball.
That's the way it goes, man.
Yep. Next up on our list, we talked about Chicalito, and it'd be unfair to not point to his mate up the middle, and that's Fernando Muniz. Man. Fernando, I'm sure we'll talk about him again later in this thing, but some of the fastest hands I think I've seen in a long while. I mean, just smooth transitions, gets the ball out of his glove. He really made really good reads on hops. I remember in the Melbourne game, in the region final, I think, against Melbourne, there was a ball that, I thought he didn't go up far enough, and man, he was just perfect. He saw the hop, he knew his field very well there at Leto, and he did just an outstanding job.
First met Fernando Muniz many years ago, coaching him, and he got hurt like early on in his tenure with our club. But just the attitude that he had, just watching the games, he was one of those. A lot of times kids get hurt and you disappear. Nandi, as I call him lovingly, stayed with us the entire time and was on the team, and just we got so close. And he's a kid that he'll always have a place near and dear to my heart. His parents, Fernando and Eileen, just great people. And just a guy that does it right, Nandi. Whatever he does on the field, whether it's get a bunt down, make the easy plays on offense, a true leader for Coach Pizio's Leto Falcons team, and incredible season, and it couldn't happen to a nicer kid.
And right here, we'll go with one of the only sophomore, I think, listed on there.
But deserves it big time.
Alex Hare, the center fielder at Berkeley Prep. That's a brutal district.
It is.
You're in with Calvary Christian, which until the state championship game hadn't lost a game in 2 years, and that is tough sledding to be the second team in that talented district that also includes a Tampa Prep, a Berkeley Prep, a CCC. Very good district, and Alex just covers a ton of ground. Another guy that Coach Richie Warren, he specifically talked about how he. Reads balls and does it in a way that you don't see from a guy who's young. Now, let's also preface, the private schools are able to have kids be around longer than so he has been around the program for 3 years, and
that helps,
and that definitely helps. And then the last two, we'll start with Jet Davis at Bloomingdale. Jet Davis is one of those kids, one of those guys who whatever you ask him to do, he's willing and able to do it. He played some first base, he played some second base, he played some shortstop. He was really kind of an everyman for him, and that's a tough adjustment, Jay.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about the adjustment from in game to be prepared to play shortstop and then make the move either to first base or even second base.
I think it's, when you think about it, it's a different glove usually. And just seeing the ball come off the bat in different angles, is one of the hardest things, especially as a shortstop. You're thinking most of the right-handed batters, they're going to be pulling the baseball to you. It's going to get on you a lot faster. First base is far away from the bag you're supposed to be, where you're supposed to be on cutoffs, which is not something that a lot of people bring up. There's so many different little intricacies at first base. It's not just stick the big guy over there and he's going to catch everything. There's so many different things as far as cutoffs, as far as being able to bunt coverage, to be able to play all those different positions. Very, very impressive.
And Bloomingdale's another team that plays really good defense.
Yeah, you're right.
A Nico Saladino at shortstop.
Not a pitcher when he comes out and
wins 4 games.
It's incredible, man.
Jackson Hobbs is another guy who did nice things, and then Brock Wilkin at third base. The team is very good. And lastly, and certainly not least, we'll mention
what's his name? Man.
Connor Scott.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, that guy.
Connor Scott.
Love you, bro.
I mean, he might be a better defender off the mound than he is in center field.
It's crazy. Not a slight no.
No, he's great in center field. He's excellent in the outfield. But man, off the mound, I was amazed. I don't remember what game it was, but it was a team that just kept trying to bunt on him, and it wasn't working.
It's funny too, because we try to make this Defend 10 team, and this was one of the. We wanted to give some love to guys that didn't always make the first top 2 teams. But when you look at a guy like Connor Scott, it was everybody we asked, they were he was one of the best defenders. So we didn't want to leave guys out or put them on. You know what I mean? We wanted to make sure that we give everybody some love. But if you were one of the best defenders, and multiple coaches said that, we had to give you some love too.
Yeah, we sent, 5, 6, 7 text messages. Hey, who were the best 3, 4 defenders you saw? And
not just from their team, from other teams.
Who you saw this year, and Connor Scott was on almost everybody's list, and so that's our Defend 10, our 10 standout defenders for this year.
All right, let's move on up. We'll go to the second team, the all 813 second team, and again, making these teams. We also have a bunch of kids at the Honorable Mention at the end. Feel free to put some comments there. We're on Facebook Live at 813 Preps, right? And also on my page at JRetcher, so feel free to leave some comments below. Let us know where you're watching and what team you represent. We'll give you a shout-out if we can.
All right, here we go with our second team.
All right,
man. Well, I did them in alphabetical order, but I kind of moved them around as the pictures worked out. So,
and mind you, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but mind you, when we're doing these teams, it's just a blank number of kids. It's not like a first baseman, a second baseman, a shortstop. We just try to take the best, 16, 17 kids?
16 teams.
Best 16 kids top 16 guys for the first team and then the second 16 guys for the second team, because there were some positions that were heavier than others when it comes to talent, and it's tough because a lot of times some of the better players are a shortstop or a catcher or something like that, and we didn't want to keep guys out, so we just wanted to make it a flat 16 guys on the first team and 16 on the second.
Yeah, and other considerations go into there's the most valuable player is a thing that's not. When these teams are put out, sometimes they're not as it's not credited as much, and the value that some of these guys had. So let's start with Gaither shortstop Orlando Arevalo. Jay, you want to talk about Orlando?
A guy that I've known for a long time as well. I mean, making the big change from Cambridge Christian, heading over to Gaither, and when you lose a guy like Mr. Williams at shortstop, who did such a good job for Gaither, leading them to a state championship a couple years ago. Yeah. The big question is who is going to play shortstop, and you get a guy like Orlando Arevalo, a true team player, a good kid, one of the bigger transfers in the last couple years to really kind of steady the ship for Gaither, and he was a guy that when he got hits in bunches.
Yeah,
and batted .429 this year, 8 doubles, 26 hits, total 13 runs scored.
24 RBI.
Key player for Nelson North's Gaither Cowboys team.
We'll move over to Matt Byers from Durant. Durant had a tough year. I mean, there's no real way to put it. I think Durant would agree with that. I think they could have had a better year. But Byers was one of those guys who...
He's under the radar, man.
Yeah, man.
Under the radar guy.
Coach Valdez and his assistants and Coach Scalara over there, they did some interesting stuff. They slow played their pitchers. I watched a game early against Plant City, a game they lost 2-1, and it went extra innings. But, it was a guy throwing a couple innings here and a guy but he really started to get stretched out at the end of the year, and in a staggering fashion, finished 6-0 with a 0.82 ERA.
Good for him, man.
And 72 strikeouts in 42 innings. Pretty good.
Big. That's big.
Pretty good for a guy who didn't throw more than 5 innings until the end of March.
Yeah, big time at the end of the year.
Next, we go to Savas Cardona. Savas is a senior at Cambridge Christian. Just a team that, again, I've seen a couple times in the last year. I think you went and saw him this year as well.
I got a chance to see him over at Skyway.
They do a lot of things right.
Yeah, they do.
I really like Coach Piercefield and what he's put together out there, both as a team and then kind of a just a community of things. Their school is 100% dedicated. I mean, when I was at their games, it would be volleyball players and softball players and football players. Coach Dare, the football coach, was at all 4 games I went and saw of theirs, and
the support is huge.
It is, and Savas is a guy who hit .325, scored 20 runs and drove in 14, stole 13 bases, and just what he did as far as kind of a captain for their defense. I know Coach Piercefield will dearly miss him.
All right, who's up next on the second team?
All right. We move to the next group. Let's start with another transfer, a mid-year transfer. He played football at Riverview before transferring over to Bloomingdale, and that's big Dom Ganella.
This guy's a load.
Yeah, he is
big dude, man.
He is a grown man. He is a absolute.
He is a grown man.
Yeah, he hit .387. He had 29 hits this year, 21 runs scored, 14 RBIs, 2 home runs, 3 triples. When he gets his lower half is. He is a running back for a reason. He has power, and when he gets going, it is fun to watch. It really is. And then he's got a pretty decent arm out there as well. So that's the next guy. Another guy, a guy who's just done tremendous for the last couple years for a team that I think really shocked a lot of people last year, advancing to the semifinals of the Saladino tournament, and then this year really put it all together to win their first district and region titles, and that's Carrollwood Day School senior Frank Fury.
Yeah.
Frank does a little bit of everything. He pitches, he plays some outfield, plays some infield as well. He is just a guy who, in big moments, he stepped up. I mean, I remember the Calvary Christian game. That was a game that they were really competing with, and they lost in extra innings, and he was the guy on the mound for that game, and he really held one of the best teams in the area in check for the whole, for 7 innings.
He's a good player, man, and he's a guy that is, you're right, he's one of those guys that comes up big when you really need him.
Yeah, 24-game hit streak last year.
That's crazy, man.
That is insane.
Good for
at
him.
The high school level. It really is. And then a guy, another Plant Panther, Mike Haydeck, second baseman, a guy who just has produced for Plant for a number of years. Hit at the top of the order for him, was the kind of the spark plug to get started in front of the Faglers, Scotts, and Sanguinettis. Played great second base. He hit .344 with 33 hits, scored 26 runs, had 6 doubles, and 11 RBIs as the bottom of Plant's lineup really started to produce late in the year.
He doesn't get a lot of credit. I mean, that's why another reason why you love to do lists like this, because I think a lot of times you do a list and you look at the big name, big high flyer guys, but you go to a Plant game and he's in there somehow.
Sure.
He has something to do with why the team's being successful. So I definitely, Haydack is a good name for this list for sure. All right, next slide up. Who's the next 3 guys?
Well, I'll let you start. Why don't you start with our man Javi Hernandez?
Javi Hernandez. I mean, this is a guy that when we were making this list, you got to put a guy like Javi Hernandez in there. I mean, you want to talk about the arm. You want to talk about the batting .413 this year. Just another one of those feel-good stories, one of those feel-good moments to have a kid like that. One of Lato's best, and just a real solid leader for Coach Pizio and the boys.
Yeah, and we talked about the Defend 10. It's absolutely possible that Javi Hernandez could have been there.
Yeah.
A rocket arm, fields a nice hot corner. He guards that line really well. Really, 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 really well. We'll go next to Plant City lefty Parker Messick, a junior. Parker is a verbal commit to Florida State. He hit .298 on the year. He had 17 RBIs, and then he started really well on the mound, winning his first 5 games, and then he went 1-3 the rest of the way, but still finished with a 1.58 ERA and struck out 45 guys in 44 innings.
This is a guy that every time, again, a lot of these guys that are making these teams, when these teams came up with big wins, a lot of these guys are a big contributor to that. So to be able to take the ball against tough teams, and it gets rougher as the year goes on, but hey, he's got another year ahead of him. So yeah. I'm excited to see what he's got to bring to the table for Plant City next year too.
And a guy who goes deep into games. 6-7 innings. He went 7 innings 3 times, 6 innings 3 more times. Just a constant competitor. He was the Wade Boggs Award winner this year from the county.
Congrats!
Absolutely. And next on this slide is Jordan Lala. Jordan Lala, another guy. I think last year was in the range of the best transfer to a team. Steinbrenner. Steinbrenner's had so many good years. This year has to be kind of viewed as a disappointment because they've been so good from the get-go. But Jordan Lala was a constant producer. He hit .406 from the top of the lineup. He scored 25 runs. He had 10 doubles.
That's crazy.
10 doubles.
There's certain kids that you watch, and I think he might have had, between him and another guy we'll be talking about a little bit later on, one of the top guys in doubles. There was only a handful of guys that had double-digit doubles this year.
Yeah.
But when you look at a guy like Jordan Lala, University of Miami commit, there's certain kids that can just roll out of bed and hit. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you this guy can hit at 6 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon. He can hit at noon. He can hit at midnight. This guy, Jordan Lala, it's a pleasure to watch him hit one of the smoothest swings you're going to see, and a very well-deserved spot on our all 813 second team.
Absolutely.
All right, next one up.
All right.
Look at these two guys.
Yeah. Let's start with Connor McTeer at Sickles. Sickles deserves a tremendous amount of credit for what they did this year. They played the best season the school's ever had, and this isn't a new school. This is a school that's been around for 15 years or so, and no, even longer.
Yeah, longer than
longer.
that.
18, maybe 20 years. Yeah. And they had their best season ever, and they won their first ever district tournament, and Connor was a big part of that. He's a guy who he hit 394. He drove in 18 runs. He scored 14 runs. The big man stole 2 bases. I'm appreciative of that. And just a good glove at first base.
Yeah.
And not a boisterous leader, but a guy you could probably point that I'm sure Coach Eric Luxus pointed at and say, hey, here's a guy who's just going out and doing it. And that is more valuable than I think a lot of coaches. There's guys who are out there that are boisterous and loud, and they get attention that way. But he was a guy who just went about work.
And, it's funny. I saw Connor. I got a chance to interview him during the regular season during Saladino, and he's just one of those guys that just got better, and his confidence grew as the year went on. And I got a chance to hang out with him during the All-Star game, too. And I actually saw him, speak and pipe up a little bit, talk to some of his other teammates. And that's cool. That's what you want to see. You want to see kids grow and, just one of those things where they mature wise beyond their years, more than just on the ball field, but how they interact with other kids and their peers. And Connor did. I was so taken aback and so impressed at Connor McTeer and the way that he was a leader on the field. And even in an all-star game, it wasn't like one of those things where he was taking it too serious and I was like, all right, bro, calm down. It was an all-star game. Right. It was one of those things where he was just working. He was just trying to get better. And he was like, hey, this guy's got a good breaking ball, and this guy's fastball really gets on you quick. And just very impressed with a guy like Connor McTeer. And best of luck at the next level, man, because I see a guy like that progressively getting better as the years go on.
Yeah, and he's playing college ball at the next level. He's going to Christian Brothers.
I think so. Yeah.
Christian Brothers. Yeah. It's in Memphis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah,
best of luck to you, buddy.
Absolutely. And our second picture here, Joey Perillo.
Look at the flow, God. Look at the flow right here.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta like the Bad News Bears attitude of the Strawberry Crest. Those guys, they were fun to watch. They really were. And another guy in just a stacked catcher.
Yeah.
I
other
can't
years.
think of a year we've had catchers like this. And he scored 25 times. He hit 370. He had 31 hits and stole 14 bases. I think we were talking about the region semifinal game against Wharton. Mm-hmm. Where he scored the game winner, and he did it pretty much all by himself. He reached
without
base.
hitting the ball.
Yeah, he reached base without hitting the ball.
Yeah, I think he got hit by a pitch.
Get hit by a pitch, and then he just made havoc at first base and got a ball thrown away. And then
the guy was trying to pick him off at first. The ball gets away. He hustles around to third base.
Hustles around to third, and then does a stutter step 4 or 5 times and gets the pitcher to balk and scores the deciding run. Obviously, we mentioned earlier they made a 8A state final, and he was a big part of that.
He was such a good player, and I remember when he was going to pick on. I'm going to say it again, Joey, one more time, buddy. This will be the last time I bring it up. But he busted his ass going to pick up a foul ball, and it was one of the funniest things that happened all year. But just the leadership of that team. I mean, just looking at those guys, Perillo, Benny Hughes, Derek Barone, Dell. I mean, you look at all these guys, Damian Torres.
Yeah, sure.
It's just such a good leadership core for these guys. Jacob Heath is another guy. There's just so many good players, and Coach Beatty deserves a whole hell of a lot of credit for what Strawberry Crest did this year. It was an honor to watch them have that Bad News Bears has against that us against the world mentality. And I'm not saying this as a slight, but they had no guys this year where you look at and you're like, oh, it was a team. Mm-hmm. That was a true team this year, and I think that is one of those things that we're going to say a lot over the course of this program today is not just Strawberry Crest. There's a bunch of other teams out there. They were teams, and they didn't get by, and they didn't get as far as they got because it was just one stud guy and everybody rattled around. There were it was a great example of team baseball this year in Hillsborough County, and we got to just give you guys a shout out.
I think Perillo is a fine example of that. I don't know if Eric Beatty will admit to this, but I don't think he knew exactly what he had in Perillo.
I agree.
When he moved him to that lead-up spot to start this year, I don't know if he could have anticipated what he did. And I mean, to to get on base as much, score the 25 runs. Heck, nowadays you don't see catchers running for themselves very often. He's just the kind of hustle and nails player that just goes out there and gets it done.
For sure.
All right, we'll move on to our next slide. Now, I'm not claiming to be an excellent photographer. I do my best. I am going to apologize to my friend Austin Spires here. What a terrible shot. It was the only one I could find of him. I thought I had a better one, but I didn't. But a absolutely deserving player. 29 hits. He hit .414 for Newsom, which is another team that kind of just is always steady. They're in that brutal distance district. That's Alonzo, Newsom, 9A, so it's the biggest classification. So it's Alonzo, Newsom, Palm Harbor University in Sarasota. When they announced it, I think I map quested it out. If you started at Newsom and went all the way back, it was like 280 miles or something. Man. Just to go to one district. I used to always joke with Coach Faedo when he went to Sarasota Riverview and asked if he got a hotel, what hotel he stayed when he went down there. But Austin Spires, 15 runs scored, 11 RBIs, 5 doubles, just consistently got it done, and then a really good glove, and a guy who I think will find a spot at the next level and maybe play some outfield.
I like Austin Spires because he's a guy that competed every single day at Newsom, and it's a school that has a lot of kids that try out, and I think one of the things that we fall into sometimes is you kind of lose some of the teams that are farther out east or a little bit of a drive away. So we wanted to make sure that those teams like Durant, Riverview, Plant City, Newsom, Strawberry Crest, like you guys got to make sure that we got your back. We love you guys too, and we're not forgetting about the really good baseball players that are out there as well.
Absolutely. And next up is Duncan Pastore. Did you see Wharton other than the Strawberry Crest game?
No, that was the only time, but I knew that Duncan was a guy that when we did our 620 WDA high school scoreboards, he was pretty much every game.
Every game. Just steady produce kind of guy. And another guy who played some first base and then played some third base and did both really well. He hit .431 with 23 runs scored, 17 RBIs.
Those boys can hit.
Yeah.
Must be the hitting coach.
It must be their hitting coach, yeah. But still, the coaching staff in general,
Coach Hoffman. 2
UT Hall of Famers. Coach Hoffman has been there for a long time. Coach Earhart, Coach Joey Fernandez. Just a great coaching staff and always a team that you're going to get the best from. You're never going to go into a Wharton game and get a night off.
Between guys like Brian Bowman and, you look at the young Zach Earhart, second base freshman, a dynamo. That kid is going to be a problem. Watch out. If you want to talk about freshmen, the 2 freshmen, we didn't put a freshman of the year, but the 2 freshmen that stood out to me this year were pitching for Gaither, Austin Grouse, that kid's going to be a beast, and Zach Earhart, second baseman at Wharton. Those 2 guys, problems.
Yeah, and you mentioned Zach Earhart, and I'm glad he's around because his brother Drew, who was the Saladino Award winner and tore it up at UT, I just learned how to spell his last name finally, like the last week of last year's
better late
season.
than never.
So I'm glad there's another Earhart around for me to hopefully not butcher their name. All right, did we do? Yeah, we did. All right, and our last slide for our second team, it was tough when you decide who's first team and second team. Any of these guys, you could make the argument
these 3,
for. Yeah, any of these 3 you could make the argument for. We will start with Justice Thompson, Jay Boogie, outfielder and pitcher for King. A big part of their state final run last year, and just a good guy. I every time I would interview somebody else about who's the guy on the team who kind of makes sure he calls and, hey, do you want to do some extra hitting? Do you want to be on the field? You know, almost to a man, they all said, oh, yeah, it's Justice. Justice is always wanting to be a part of it. I know, you know, I wrote a feature at the end of the year on Keon Floyd, and Keon certainly looked at Justice as a guy who instantly welcomed him on a team and helped him as he, you know, tried to find a place to be, you know, a starter for the Lions. Justice, you know, you can look at some of these stats here. You know, he hit 360.
24 bags swiped.
Yeah,
Damn.
fast. You know, and he did some solid pitching. You know, King, the thing that kind of sunk them at the end is their arms. You know, they had a lot of injuries, a lot of banged up guys at the end of the year. But you know, Justice, a big part of that Saladino championship win.
Exactly, and you know, you get lucky to meet people in your life that are just good people. And I think one thing that we learned doing this is that some of the best people we meet are guys that are teenagers. You know what I mean? And I was lucky enough to coach Justice when he was like 10 years old, and to be able to get to meet his mom Tara and his dad Dave, and just to be a part. And I feel like, honestly, my life is better because I have a guy like Justice Thompson in it.
Wow.
And the kid's 17, 18 years old. I mean, he's one of the best people I know. Every single time I have a conversation with him, he is yes sir, no sir. He's thoughtful, he's intelligent, he's caring. He's a guy that is just like, you know, he's going to be successful in whatever he does. So yeah, he hit 360. I'm sure he wanted to hit 460. But the big thing with him is how am I going to be a better teammate? How am I going to be a better brother? How am I going to be a better son? We can all learn a lot about ourselves and how to be a good person by watching a guy like Justice and how he carries himself.
But I find that in baseball, you know, 20 plus years in the business doing this, covering a lot of sports. I'm not saying there's bad people in any sport, but man, when it comes out to good citizens and stuff like that, baseball, it kind of leads the way. It really does. Next on the list, and this was a tough one, man. This was a tough one to not have on first team, especially after he was on the first team last year. And that's McGuire Weaver. Just a guy who just produces. He just absolutely goes out there and breaks his back every game. He hit 378. He scored 26 runs. He drove in 14. Another guy we talked about, very few double-digit doubles on the year, and he had 12 of them.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about McGuire. I know you know him pretty well.
MVP of my Pony World Series team back in 2011, a guy that's always going to be near and dear to my heart. Just checked into Florida State, so I hope you're behaving there with Jack Anderson, you guys. But just Mac, a guy that, you know, he's a winner.
Yeah.
He's a winner. There's guys out there that do winning things to help your team win. Whether it's laying down bunts, hitting, but I think you want to talk about a guy that's willing to go the other way and really hit what the pitcher's giving him. There's not many better guys than I saw that McGuire Weaver. He can play everywhere. He can play outfield. He can play infield. He was a damn good pitcher back in the day until too many innings on that arm. But just a guy that Jesuit, you want to talk about replacements. You know, there's a lot of seniors. There's a lot of guys. It's going to be tough to replace. A guy like McGuire Weaver, in my opinion, is going to be tough to replace for Jesuit. I mean, they're going to be able to do it, obviously,
right.
Because they got the rags. You know, they got the embarrassment of riches over there. But just a guy that's a heart and soul type player, and one of the key reasons why they went to the state championship game last year as well. He's a guy keep an eye on at the next level. He's going to make a big impact for Florida State.
You know, I had a mentor who taught me that no one is irreplaceable, but it might take 2 or 3 guys to do it. it really was. Yeah. And one last thing, one more thing, I'd like to go back to Justice Thompson.
Yeah, sure.
And just on a unique, different thing. Shout out to Legion Post 248.
Yes, I saw that.
Coached by J.J. Pizio, Leto High School. So they're a Legion Post, and Justice Thompson is playing with them.
I saw that.
And he has, I think he has at least 4, maybe 5 home runs in 2 weekend championships with 2 inside the Parkers.
It was cool to see that because kids growing up, Nandi Muniz also was playing at that team, a bunch of Leto guys, and also a guy that I used to coach years ago, Cam Diaz, who played up at Bishop McLaughlin. He was on that team too. So it was cool to see guys that, you know, play together when they were younger and then play together, you know, right before they go. It's such a weird time for a lot of these seniors because they're in between high school and then playing at the next level. Games like this and tournaments like this are stuff they're just kind of like once in a lifetime things, so you'll always remember it.
And last but certainly not least, again, we talked about how exceptional the three inside the Parkers.
There you go, Bobby Stacy.
One 400-footer. Jeez. I need Coach Macaluso is like, hey, I need 3 or 4 more of those in the high school year last year. And last and certainly not least, we talked about the depth at catcher this year. And we would be remiss if we didn't mention Charlie Welch, who transferred into to Jefferson and batted behind. Batted in a 1, 2, 3, 4 that was probably the best in the county hitting wise.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what he did, batting behind guys like Robbie Martin and A.J. Mathis. Ty Evans was in there, and Mark DeGespy was in there as well. Incredible, man. Just an incredible what he did to help this team, And a lot of times, you don't get enough credit and you don't get all the love sometimes because you do the grunt work. I know he was dealing with a thumb injury, and that was kind of pain in his butt as the year went on. But he stuck with it, man. And Charlie stayed working his tail off, batting .440 this year, 2 jacks. He had that big home run against Steinbrenner at Steinbrenner. That was a statement game early on in the season, going to Pepperdine, coast to coast, Charlie Welch. So again, a fringe guy. These last 3 guys could have been first-team guys.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But just
37 hits, 26 RBIs. Every one of those guys was, the 3 we mentioned, Mathis, Martin, and him. Every one of those guys was a nightmare for pitchers and coaches. They had to be, who do we give the fastball to? And he got a lot of them. Certainly, AJ got a lot of them, and mistakenly, Robbie got a few of them as well.
Right. All right, that wraps it up for our second team. And now, boom, 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 the top 16 players in Hillsborough County. Our all 813 first team. Again, we're going in alphabetical order. And this first guy, man, I mean, and you're going to live tweet him now, aren't you?
I am. I'm going to live tweet him. So if I'm a little bit more quiet, I'm going to let Jay even though he did a solid effort on the radio today, I'm going to let him give you some dulcet.
I got nothing else going on.
Yes.
All right, but yeah, so we're looking at, what has gone on with everybody, and we got to go to this first team. And Jarrett, if you're not following me already on Twitter, at 813preps, I'm going to tweet it out as well, retweet it from my account, at JRetcher. So make sure, if you're watching it, you're also keeping an eye on Twitter as well. But we got to start, and this is part of the reason why it was so tough to have all these catchers on there. But this first guy up, when you look at him, Jackson Alvord, the catcher from Lato. This guy, again, not many people talking about him, but man, this kid just did it all. And you needed a big hit, and we asked Coach Pizio, you need a big hit? Jackson Alvord's your dude.
He's the guy, he labeled him Mr. Clutch, and he was that guy, specifically had the big game-winning hit in the district final win against Gaither. A guy who hit .371 with 21 RBIs and 19 runs scored. He had 8 doubles, 2 triples, and a home run. And then was a great catcher. I mean, just he kept everything in front of him. I didn't see a lot of pass balls, wild pitch kind of thing. Just because he battled him out, and man, just a fun pitching staff. And Jackson is a quiet kid. He's constantly, the whole team, they enjoyed this year. You could say one thing about Lato, they enjoy playing baseball.
Yeah, especially for Coach Pizio, man.
Absolutely.
He's just a cut from a different cloth, man. He's a guy that he may have a little bit of unorthodox methods to his madness, but that's what makes baseball, and that's what makes sports fun. If everybody was so damn cookie cutter and everything was so by the book and we had a bunch of robots, Coach, where's the fun in that?
Absolutely.
So shout out to JJ Pizio and the whole Lato staff, and Jackson Alvord, our first mention for our all 813 first team. Who's coming up next?
Coming up next, we got Jack Anderson, Jesuits pitcher. Jack Anderson is just a bulldog. I am a Florida State fan, and I greedily enjoyed this year watching the Hillsborough County guys, C.J. Van Eyck, Connor Gray, Jonas Galaro, Clayton Kwiatkowski. What they did was so much fun, and I am tickled, literally tickled. I'm a giant big man being tickled at the perspective.
That's not awkward at all.
Get to watch Jack Anderson come into that situation, McGuire Weaver, AJ Mathis, Robbie Martin. I am
so many guys.
I'm thrilled. I am ecstatic to get to continue to watch these guys and really root for them. And you talk about Jack. He was 5-2 this year with one save, a 1.26 ERA, 53 strikeouts for a district championship team. He was 15-8 in 3 years on the varsity with a .91 ERA. And I know we get into stats a lot, and sometimes the stats can be boring, but sometimes stats are amazing. And that stat to me was first highlighted last year to me by Jesuit Director of Communications Pete Young. He was a postseason monster.
Yeah,
he went 8-1 in the postseason from district, region, and state tournament play with a .77 ERA in 9 appearances. Excuse me. As we said, signed to pitch at Florida State. So do you have anything you'd like to add?
A guy that every single game was a bulldog. You're right, man. He did not want to give in one bit. And looking back, and like I said, we don't want to be so wrapped up on stats, but look at the caliber of competition that Jesuit plays and the caliber of competition he beat Merritt Island, which is one of the top teams in the country. And I believe Mason Denneberg pitched that game, first round draft pick. He also pitched against Sarasota. He pitched against Jefferson, the state champs, and beat them.
He's pitched against Jefferson all 3 times, right?
It's incredible, man.
Yeah.
This guy really, when the ball was given to him, he went out and did some really big things. And he's another guy going to the next level. He's another guy that you got to keep your eye on. Florida State, a lot of good young pitchers. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Jack Anderson throwing some big innings for the Noles next year.
When you do this long enough, sometimes when you get to talk to guys, something really stands out to you. And something that really struck me in the number of times I talked to him, and a handful of times, excuse me. This year, they won their first district game against Jefferson. It was 1-0. Joel Brewer hit a leadoff home run. That was the only run scored. And
a 10-pitch at bat.
I asked him a question. The first, hey man, how are you feeling out there? Some generic question, which you guys are nice enough to answer for me. And then before he ended it, he made it a point to talk about Mike Dominguez, the Jefferson pitcher, and just not just talk about what he did on the field, but talk about the character and how the competitor that Mike was, and that really stood out with me because this is a moment where you could be really, really you won a big game and you could be really hyped up, but the way he thinks was he wanted to make sure that
gotta love that
he gave some attention to someone else. And next up, we don't have to go far. We're gonna stay in beautiful that beautiful baseball field, Higher Park.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go to our next selection, and that is Javi Baldor. Javi had a tremendous season for Jesuit. I'm not saying an unexpected season, but I don't know if anybody would have predicted, 36 hits, 26 runs, 24 RBIs, a .450 batting average. Another guy, 8 doubles, 2 triples. When I talked to Coach Menendez about him, Miguel Menendez about him, he labeled him a throwback player, a hustle guy. And one of the things he talked about was how Javi was the first man in and off the field. He played outfield. He was usually in right field and far away from the dugout. And man, he said 9 times out of 10 he beat everybody else into the dugout. He's just a constant competitor.
Here's the thing you got to love about Javi Baldor, okay? This is a kid that had to sit out last year with an arm injury, and it killed him not to be on the field. You look at your team's going to the state championship 2 years ago. You want to be out there. You've been playing baseball your whole life. I've known Javi since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. He was always chasing his brother Nico around in the Tampa Crush, one of the best travel teams that this city has ever seen, with Javi's dad, Javier Baldor, as the coach. Just a good group of people. Comes from a great family. And to see Javi have such a big year this year, It was such a good thing because he put in the time in the off season, and he wanted to be out there, and he was such a good teammate, such a great example of when things aren't going your way or when you're injured, you can still have an impact on your team, and you can still be a good teammate. That kid's character spoke volumes of me in the last 2 years, and he earned it. He earned this year, and I'm happy for him.
Agreed. All right, next up.
This guy. Woo! When he came in to the Saladino final and he was throwing smoke, we were like, oh, Jesus. Addison, Bart, what the heck? Kid's a stud, man. And the kid is a stud.
And a guy who kind of put it in Coach Macaluso and put it in the coaching staff that he wanted to do it.
Yeah, I like that.
He wanted to have a moment. He wanted to be the guy they turned to. And man, he did. First, I want to shout out, if you didn't catch our Saladino coverage, it might be worth to go back on to 813, perhaps go in the search thing. And our final coverage, I had a lot of help this year from a lot of different people, including Jay, who was a huge supporter of what we did, as a member of 620, but, outside of the organization, we consider him a family member. But, I really wanted the final to be something special. So I went to, hands down, the best sports photographer I know, and that's former Tribune photographer Jason Benkin. And Jason took just some amazing photos. If you need a private event or something like that, Jason, reach out to me. I'll get you in touch with Jason, because he is, my favorite thing about him is he's one of those guys who stands there and he stays the whole game. But back to Addison, I mean, you're right, just a winner and a guy who did whatever was asked of him, and really had a good year last year when they went to the state final. But man, the jump he made from junior to senior year was impressive. And all these guys, especially prospect guys, they tell you they're used to it and stuff. But man, when there's 20 guys out there hanging out on the outside of the dugout, watching your every move, even the most sound professionals, that's a pressure cooker, and especially for a 17, 18-year-old guy. And man, he handled it well.
He really did. And he's a guy, a lot of fast twitch reflexes. A guy that, when he had some pop with the bat, got a really good arm, and a kid that just, I talked to Coach Marcus Causey and just the whole King coaching staff, whether it's Coach Rose or Coach Mack, Coach Bell. Anthony, I'm not going to forget you. He got so mad at me when I forgot him on the air a couple months ago.
Just throw Macaluso. Throw an S on the end.
Macalusos. But just watching those guys and talking to my buddy Coach Causey, he just had nothing but nice things to say about Addison Barger.
Yeah, he had 354 with 30 runs scored, 22 RBIs. 5 doubles, 4 triples, a couple homers, 13 stolen bases. We mentioned that King won the Saladino championship, and he was the tournament MVP.
There you go.
And then,
they don't win it without him.
Yep, and then drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays in the 6th round, number 176. I talked to Coach Mack. I had lunch with him this morning, and Addison's already in the Gulf Coast League.
Good for him.
Already had an at-bat, I think.
Good luck, kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's next?
Jay.
All right, come on, we gotta.
I'm glad Jay's here, man, because
I'm here.
He's keeping things
This
going.
next guy, we mentioned him a little bit before. He was a guy that, whether he was in the outfield or whether he was on the mound, this guy was such a huge player for Wharton this year. Brian Bauman, and this kid, he's just another solid guy. And when a guy plays for Wharton, for Coach Hoffman, that they are sound. Yep. Defensively, offensively, they're going to do the little things. They're going to play the right way, and they're always going to be in contention at the end of the year. And that's all you can ask for. You look at Brian Ballman in those games with Wharton and Strawberry Crest. He's a guy that is solid top to bottom, and another guy I think that flies under the radar a little bit. But
this year maybe, but not anymore, man.
Not anymore.
First of all, he's crazy smart and
398 average too.
398 average, and was primarily the top of the lineup guy. He had 26 runs. That's why the RBI total is a little lower, only 8 RBIs. And then on the mound, just a bulldog. Coach Hoffman, when I asked for a superlative or two about him, he talked about how he's always in game mode.
I like that.
And he talked about having to go out to the mound and tell him to remember to breathe, because he is just out there
I like that.
snorting fire and just going out there. He went 6-3 on the mound with a 1.94 ERA and 60 strikeouts. You know, he had a 0.958 fielding percentage. He played center field. Obviously had a pitcher's arm out there. You know, made some good reads. I wish this photo wasn't as blurry as it was. I really liked it when I got it, but now that I'm seeing it blown up, I'm not as thrilled with it. But
it's all right. You're doing a good job.
Yeah. But another guy who, like you said, may have flew under the radar this year, but I don't think that'll be the case in the future here very soon.
Without a doubt. All right, the next guy up is a guy that, man, you want to talk about home runs. This guy was all about it. It seemed like at the end of the season, every single week, this guy was dropping another bomb.
Yeah, Dylan Besnier, Riverview Junior. Riverview, man, those East County. First of all, that district is one of the best. I mean, there's districts that have like a Big 2 or a Big 3. At any moment, a Riverview, Durant, Bloomingdale, Plant City, those are good teams. I'm missing someone, and they're going to be. I'm sure they'll all be angry at me here. But man, Coach Leiby, I will fully admit, at the beginning of the year, after they lost 11 seniors and had a player transfer out, and last year they had a great run, and this year I was nervous for Coach Leiby, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and man, did they came with it. It started. I think they surprised people in the Saladino. Beating Jefferson and winning that pool, and then going in there and going into the quarterfinals. But Dylan is another guy who you mentioned the county leading 6 home runs, but just a steady producer. He hit 429. Another guy who eclipsed the 30 hit mark. And let's talk about it. 30 hits.
It's a lot.
In a high school season is more than the games they played.
Mm-hmm.
And so he scored 23 runs, 27 RBIs, 7 doubles, 2 triples, an all tournament selection.
For Saladino.
For the Saladino all
and
tournament.
going to USF, so.
Yeah.
Make sure you tweet him out. Don't leave him out.
I will definitely not.
But yeah, Dylan Besnier, and just looking at that whole Riverview squad, but Coach Leiby, the Jorgensen boys, that's a team that, again, doesn't get a lot of love because they're out east, but when you watch them play, they're scrappy guys. They play their tail off, and I thought that was one of the more impressive games this year was their win over Jefferson. I mean, you look back at it now, they beat you beat a state champ. Yep. You know what I mean? And I thought that they did beat them. I don't think Jefferson lost that game. I thought Riverview won that game. I think they just wanted it more on that night. They weren't looking ahead to anybody. They were locked in on Jefferson. That's the team they wanted to play. That's the team they wanted to beat. So I got to give a shout out to Coach Leiby and the boys. You guys, I know at the end of the year the record may not be where you wanted it to be, but you want to talk about a team that you can enjoy watching play. That's Riverview for sure.
Don't be too nice to Coach Leiby because
it's my boy, man. I love Coach Leiby.
He's making us jealous. He's out at the College World Series on us right now.
So is Jason Gordon. I saw Jason Gordon too. Man.
Out there supporting Cole Gordon,
there you go.
His son. And how about that, man? College baseball is some fun action. We got Nelly Maldonado and Jordan Butler for the Gators, and Cole Gordon as the just come out of the bullpen reliever, just killed it in the Super Regional for Mississippi State. We'll go to our next slide. Our next guy, we talked about him a little bit, but man, what a tremendous season and just a monster end of the year for state champion Jefferson starting pitcher Mike Dominguez.
Stacy, you still watching? I know we're friends on Facebook, so you better be watching this right now. The ace of the state, the ace of the champs.
Yep.
Mikey Dominguez, already committed to UT. This guy, a warrior, bro.
Yeah.
This guy is legit on the mound. And I remember when I first met him, he was playing, I think it was with either the Bullets or the Titans, so with my buddy Andre Diaz, Cam's dad, and all those guys. And he was a pitcher, and this kid he had this look on his face that was, I don't care who you are. I am going to shove fastballs right up in your face, and there's nothing you can do. And he's done it even more as he's gotten older. And, God, man, Mike Dominguez, a great kid. He works his tail off. And, every good team in every state championship needs an ace. And that's exactly what he was. Every shape and form, he gave his team a chance to win every single game this year. I don't remember him having a bad game this year. And your stats are incredible.
Yeah, he went 9-3. Again, like I said, one of those losses was what we talked about, was
1-0.
the Jesuit game, 1-0. He gave up one home run
on the first batter.
I think
of the
he
game.
gave up 2 hits the whole game.
Joel Brewer hits a home run. I think it was on a 10-pitch at bat.
Yeah.
12-pitch at bat. That was the only run given up.
He earned it. He went 9-3 on the year, 1.26 ERA. 116 strikeouts. And here's some things that I want to point out. He made 17 appearances. I mean, that is that's impressive, but not in a overutilized role. I mean, he's not an overthrower. He is a very calm guy. He's unflappable.
Mechanically sound.
Yeah. He had a dozen strikeouts in both the region final game and the state semifinal game. I mean, a dozen strikeouts at that stage against that kind of hitters. I mean, that's
coming up
impressive.
big. Coming up big when you need them most.
And let's just look at the end of the year, from the last start of the regular season through all the starts he made in the postseason. He had at least 7 strikeouts in his final 7 games. And as you mentioned, he's verbally committed to
hell of a
the
year,
University
Mikey.
of Tampa.
Hell of a year.
And we get one more
and
year
he's
from
only
him.
a junior.
Yeah. I love it.
Speaking of juniors,
oh man, there are
kid,
a lot of them. Huh?
And you know what? There's not many kids out there, in my opinion, that had a better all-around season than this guy here.
Yeah, I mean,
Dylan Eskew from Sickles, their ace, their best hitter, their best player all the way around for Coach Jarrett Guthrie and the Griffin gang. Just every single day, it was like he threw 7 innings and struck out 7 or 8. He went 3 for 4 with 2 doubles. Like every single game, Dylan Eskew was a guy that was doing his thing. It was very impressive season from, again, only a junior.
Yeah, and I think when you look at a guy like Dylan, it was very similar with Connor Scott. Where is he the most valuable?
Yeah.
And certainly on the mound, he did it, and I expect big things out of a sophomore Chase Santala next year. That the Jefferson and Sickles, who are dominating this year, will both have a pretty good 1-2 punch next year. He went 9-2 on the mound with a 1.83 ERA and 85 strikeouts. Oh yeah. Then he hit 465.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that too.
29 RBIs, 28 runs scored, 6 doubles, 2 triples, 4 home runs, and just for giggles, he stole 12 bases.
Nuts, man.
The Saladino Award, Saladino tournament has some superlatives, and one that I think he earned very well was the Frank Permui Best Hitter Award, and
easy decision.
Yeah, it really was. It really was when you started to look at it. And man, just an outstanding year. Miami commit as well.
Yeah. So you're looking at Sickles and a great year by Coach Eric Luxus and the gang, and playing against one of the better teams I think around in this state, the Plant Panthers. And Plant, a lot of love for Connor Scott, deservedly so. But this guy right here was another all-around player, whether it was at third, whether it was on the mound, or whether it was at the plate. This guy can bunt his ass off, too.
Yep.
My man, Brock Fagler, what an unbelievable season for the Plant standout. And not only is he great on the mound, I thought he was involved in one of the best games this year in Saladino, that game against against Strawberry Crest, where Benny Hughes, a guy that didn't make our list, but Benny, one of our favorite guys, hits a home run, a solo jack, I think in the 8th, right? Mm-hmm. And then Brock hits a walk-off 3-run jack, right? I think it's 7th or 8th inning.
No, it was the 9th inning.
9th inning, even more.
I was at that game. That was, until the state championship from Jefferson, the best game I saw all season. Mm-hmm. Brent May was a monster for Strawberry Crest, who dueled against Connor Scott on the mound. The 10 a.m. game in Ruskin, it was gray. It was kind of wet and drizzly, and they did it. You know, they had Plant was down a couple guys from SAT, but it was just such a fun game to watch them play. And yes, Brock. A guy I've enjoyed covering for 3 years. You know,
you're a big Brock. I'm a Brock. I've known Brock for a long time. Loved Brock, part of our Pony World Series team. But you're a big Brock Fagler fan.
You know, you see, the real fun part about this job, if you do it consistently and you actually go to the games and cover these guys and stuff like that, is you get to know him, and you get a little attached to him. And Brock's a guy I really got to see grow up.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, not that he was immature or anything like that, but just get more confident when he talked to his teammates, when he talked to me. You know, just fun. And another guy who did it everywhere. He was Plant's ace. And man, Plant is that. You know, when you talk about, we used to always talk about Florida and Florida State football and stuff like that. And when you get into the locker room of Wake Forest, you get into the locker room of some of these other teams, there's one game circled on the schedule. And Plant is that for a lot of teams. Yeah. Plant's that game. And so he had the big games, the biggest games, you know.
103 strikeouts. 9 walks.
9 walks.
This guy struck out more than 100 people and walked less than 10.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
1.59 ERA,
what?
6-3 record. And again, kind of in the same ilk as what we just talked about. He had 365 with 25 RBIs.
Crazy, man.
4 home runs, 7 doubles. Saladino all-tournament selection, signed to play at the State College.
I'm surprised he didn't get drafted. My man Brock should have got drafted. Where y'all? MLB scouts, where y'all at? Better take care of my boy Brock Fagler, because he's going to be a problem at the next level.
There's a lot of fun things that I did this year, and I'll tell you what. One of those things was I went out and watched a handful, 7 or 8 HCC JUCO games. And
nice.
I went to the JUCO state championship out in Lakeland for a couple games, and I saw State College of Florida. I saw Chipola's. I saw so the JUCO level in the state of Florida is outstanding. So he'll get seen. He'll get some attention.
Hell yeah!
And if Brock Fagler is a favorite of mine, I'm going to let you take the ball here on the next one.
One of Brock's teammates from years ago, the Gooch, Danny Gutcher. What can I say? Again, I what I said before about Justice Thompson, I can similarly say for Danny Gutcher. Danny is one of the best people I know in my entire life. And we talked about this years ago, but like, you know how you have those people in life where, you know, everybody likes them? Like, everybody. Like, there's no way that you or I would ever be on that list. And we're cool with that. We're cool with that. We get it.
We know what lane we're in.
Yeah, we know what everybody, we're not everybody's cup of tea. We get that. But Danny is just one of those guys that, like, everybody loves. And you see why. I mean, again, to be able to have the versatility to be able to handle a senior pitching staff when you're a sophomore, to be able to deal with some freshmen and younger guys when you're a senior, and just to be able to do everything asked. Mm-hmm. Danny was a guy that played for me growing up and didn't complain about playing time or where he batted in the lineup or where he played in the field at all. Not one time. He didn't do it. His parents didn't do it. He is a great example of how to play baseball and how to be a good teammate, to be a good player. I mean, look at everything that he did throughout his career. He came up and played third base. He could have been the shortstop. In my mind, he was one of the best shortstops in the county, and he didn't even play. And now he's got catcher. He's going to USF next year. He was a Defend10 selection. He's one of the smartest kids at Gaither. I think top 5, top 10 in the school. But
Saladino, Pop Cuesta Defensive Player of the Tournament Award.
And he runs the bases for himself. Kind of you said with
Perillo. We'll talk about his stats.
Bases.
14 stolen bases.
Nuts.
25 runs scored, 390, 5 triples. Also 24
I think that
walks.
was the most, right?
Triples?
I mean, I think he had the most. Yeah, I mean, out of all the guys that we have the numbers here, he had the most triples, and he was a catcher.
Yeah.
And it wasn't cheapy triples either, man. He was legging them out.
And hey, man, if I can give sage wisdom to any kids out there watching, and I've made this comment a number of times, is, man, I know it's tough, but when you're on the field, when you're at the park, someone is always watching you. Always watching you. And a prime example, and gosh, I wish I paid attention to which scouting organization or whatever it was, but I saw a tweet like midway through the season, and it talked about Danny Gutcher being at the stadium an hour early and raking home plate, raking the thing. There's no one else there. He's not doing this to get attention.
Yeah.
He's not doing this to get, special treatment. He's not doing this to show anybody up. He's doing this because that's the kind of player he is. And when we talked about how talented the catching was, Danny Guthrie was a guy who the intangibles really played a lot in our putting him on first team.
And there was just a lot of people that had great things to say about him. And I think that's what it's about. You know what I mean? It's like your reputation, your character, and it's not always about what you say about yourself, because everybody's their own best cheerleader.
Sure.
But what other people say about you. And I took a lot of pride in being part of Danny growing up and being a good kid, and hope I didn't screw him up too bad. But to hear other coaches say good things about him, and trust me, guys out there, there's a lot of coaches out there. We take the opinions that you guys have, and we don't take it with a grain of salt. It means so much to us because we know that your heart's in the right place a lot of times. It's not just about your teams. It's about the other players on the other teams too. And just to hear some of the coaches say good things about Danny Guthrie. I know his mom and dad are probably watching this, and they're going to see this. They're going to be so proud. But, I mean, he earned it, man. These guys that are on these lists, we're not giving it just to anybody. These are total package baseball players and total package human beings.
Yeah, not anything I didn't want to do, or anything, but, I talked to, 28 coaches, either through text or when I prepared this list. And, I asked them about other guys. And Danny Guthrie was a name that consistently came up, whether it was the Defend 10 we talked about or character or something like that. This was a guy that a lot of coaches talked about. This is a guy that coaches drool over.
Yeah.
Opposing coaches drool over.
One of many, too, because there were so many damn good
really
catchers. Crazy.
There's an old line, there's only one tool you can't teach. And this guy, he's got it all, right? And he's got that speed tool. So let's talk about our next representative. I love this picture.
Yeah, buddy. Rolling like a big shot.
A.J. Mathis.
Money Mathis.
Great photo from Will Turner. I got to talk about Will.
Will, great job this year, Will Turner.
Absolutely. I could not have done this season without my correspondent and really my partner in this website, Will Turner. He came down to the state tournament and shot some excellent photos for me. Check him out at TB Turner 813 on Twitter, and make sure you show some love and support if you see him out at a game. He's told me he's on board for next season.
Nice.
I'm excited about that. But AJ Mathis,
set the table, kid.
Yeah. Pot stirred, table setter, drink, straw that stirs the drink, whatever you want to talk about. Led Hillsborough County in runs, 43.
How many?
43.
Damn.
Yeah. Stolen bases, 47.
I thought that was a typo.
No.
47 stolen bases.
Yeah.
What?
28 walks, too. I mean,
that's crazy, man.
He was second.
Selfless.
Yeah, second. And he turned that up at the end of the year like nobody else. He had 40 hits, second leading hits in Hillsborough County. Obviously, we'll talk about somebody else later on. 7 doubles, 2 triples, 2 home runs, including the huge game winner against Land O'Lakes in the region
close.
quarterfinal.
They were this close, and I talked to them about it. They were on air with us last week on 620 WDA. You can catch that up on my page, 620WDA.com/JRetcher. And I asked them about that. I said, AJ, this close, bro. This close to Jefferson not making it, and he goes against one of the better relievers in Pasco County, who's Ryan Ricardo, a kid that I've known at Land O'Lakes, and AJ hits the home run, and it was like, that's when, to me, I looked at it, I said, this could be a special season for Dragon Nation.
Yeah.
And it was, man, and he was a guy that just, in center, he made it look easy. Another guy that could have been on the Defend 10.
He absolutely could have been on the Defend 10, and I've talked to people and I tell them something, and it starts out sounding terrible, which is I've never seen him make an outstanding play.
Yeah.
And
I'm with you.
And the reason I say that is because he has such a great eye of the ball off the bat in such a great first move. He's in position. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't make diving catches and whatever. That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, no.
Obviously, he does that. But, man, it just makes outstanding reads, and he's always in the right place. And I talked about turning it up at the end of the year. You mentioned that game. I think the loss against Jesuit, the 1-0 loss, I think that did a lot for them. I think they knew they had the hitters, and their hitters had a bad game that game. But I think that was a game that really showed them who they were, and that they could hang with absolutely anybody. And they came to play. But like I said, he turned it up at the end of the year. How about a 15-game hit streak to end the season?
What else? What else did you do? I mean, this guy AJ, all over it, committed to Florida State. It's just incredible, man. He's just a kid that just got better and better and better as his career went on, as his high school this year went on, and man, I mean, it's going to be tough for him not to break the lineup at Florida State next year. I know they got some good players, but another guy that does whatever it takes to win, 40 freaking hits in one high school season.
Yeah,
incredible. AJ Mathis, congratulations, my man. You did it big time. That's why they call you Money Mathis, man.
Absolutely.
You make money moves.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Guys, make sure you're watching us here on Facebook Live, whether you're on 813 Preps or you're on J Retro, either way. Give us a like, give us a share. Share this on your Facebook. Get the word out so we can get more people. We're going to be on probably for we've been doing this a while. We'll be on for probably another 10, 15 minutes. We got to bust through these slides. We've been cooking, but we're going up to the next guy. And again, looking at this school, Carrollwood Day School, another team that didn't get, I don't think, a lot of love before the season, but another team for our 813 Preps rankings.
That's not true.
Year.
I had
not
them.
from you.
Yeah,
I'm talking outside of you.
Yeah.
You've seen how good this team was and how many different contributors they had. And when you look at this team and you look at this guy, I mean, it's hard not to say one of the better teams in Hillsborough County all year long, Carrollwood Day School.
A team that wins more than 20 games is obviously, in the high school level is on it. But, last year, the Saladino tournament, which I know is just a regular tournament and everything like that. But
it's a big deal.
But every public school is in it. And I think Carrollwood Day came in as a little brother. They were in a bracket where I think people kind of thought they would wash out. And, that first night they stung Brandon in the nightcap. Yeah. And then they went on and they beat Plant in the quarterfinals. They made it to the semifinals. They lost to Jesuit, who won the tournament that year. And then the next year, everybody came back, the whole team. And I mean, the talent, we mentioned Frank Fury, some of their other guys, the senior lady,
the Blake Hookers of the world.
The Blake Hookers, but even the rest of their seniors, Andre Hevesy, Noah Torres, and a couple, Zach Watts, the guys that really just produced for a program that I think is there now. It's going to be that marquee program in the small classifications here for a while.
It's on its way up if it's not already there.
And certainly, they're going to take a hit next year in the fact that they lose so many seniors, and something that I know that their current coach, Ken Akins, who's been there as an assistant before taking the head coach job for a number of years. He was assistant to Nick Rodriguez. I know both of those coaches took a lot of pride that all of their seniors have signed to play at the next level.
That's great, man.
That's pretty incredible.
That's awesome.
Pretty incredible. And let's talk about Rodrigo a little bit. Here was a guy who was a catcher, and then moved to third base because they had a good catcher in Noah Torres, a guy who handled the ball well. And Rodrigo didn't miss a beat. Going from catcher to third base, obviously you have good glove skills, but I mean, speed, he's not a prototypical leadoff hitter, but he did that and did it very well. Hit 366 with 31 runs, scored 10 RBIs, 4 doubles, 18 stolen bases. Kind of a cool thing. He and his brother, Gabe, who's at Southern Miss.
Yeah, a good year.
Great year. A tremendous all-freshman conference year. They represented their home country of Guatemala in the Central America Games last great. December and won a bronze medal. So that's a pretty thing. Coach Akins labeled him as a phenomenal defender and a natural player. When I talked to him, prior to the coach, I talked to Coach about all the seniors prior to the state semifinal. He just talked about Rodrigo was the kind of guy who it just put a smile on his face to watch him out on the field. Mm-hmm. And this was a great picture. Like I said, a tough game. The game they ended up
Calvary.
losing in extra innings to Calvary Christian. A great photo here of Rodrigo being welcomed after scoring at that time what could have been the game-winning run from Zach Watts here. St. Pete College
Commit. Yep.
We'll go to the next guy.
Going to the next guy. We talked about this guy before. We got to talk about him again. Fernando Muniz. One of the more solid gloves around, but a guy that was just at the top of the lineup, always put the ball in play.
Yeah.
That was one thing that really stepped up to me. I mean, 34 hits on the year, 35 stolen bases, and 33 runs scored, batting .386. Nandi, my man, did a little bit of everything this year. And it's just incredible, man.
Hands down, my favorite thing is you could take a blowtorch or a belt sander and you couldn't wipe the smile off this kid's face. He is Mr. Positivity, and just that's an intangible that they talk about. You hear pros talk about it. We're playing a kid's game, and he's a guy who understands that and relishes the fact. You mentioned the 35 stolen bases. How about a 4-year varsity player, a 2-time district champion with 98 stolen bases in his career? Obviously he was a Defend10 selection. We mentioned there he signed at Hillsborough Community College. But that positivity, that ability to lift teammates, the guy in the dugout who tells a joke and just is always there. 33 runs scored. I mean, impressive. 34 hits. I hate to keep harping on that number, but anytime you get more hits than games played at the high school level, it's just it's outstanding.
Very impressive player, very impressive kid. Remember his dad telling me earlier this year he wanted to focus on Fernando being a better leader, and not so much. I'm not worried about the stats. I think that's a great lesson for everybody out there. Worry about how your kid is acting.
Right.
Worry about how he treats people, the coaches, the concession workers, the teammates on the field. To me, I think that's one of the things that gets lost in life but is found in sports. How you treat other people. And Fernando Muniz, I mean, it's just a perfect example of a kid that treats people the way he wants to be treated. Really good to hear, and so many good things from Nandi as well. Next guy up.
And one last thing, Coach Wren at HCC does a great job of getting local guys, and this kid's going to be a steal. Jose Cadenas went bananas this year as a first leadoff or two-hole hitter.
Former Gaither State champion, center fielder.
And they had a young man named Aldrich DeJong who got drafted and is leaving. And, man, I think Nani might be the perfect guy to slot into that role in either the 1 or 2 spot. Next up, you want to talk about under the radar. Certainly a team that we talked about a minute ago, but a guy who just goes out there and just gets it done. And that's our next person, and that is Carrollwood Day pitcher Gabriel Partridge. I got to see Gabe a number of times, and his stuff on the mound. It's not devastating or whatever, but he hits spots better than most guys you'll see at 17, 18 years old. And he just picks the outside black of the plate, and he gets things done. 11-1 this season. And that one came in the state semifinal.
Oh, man.
Where he struck out 10 batters and pitched 6 complete game. 11-1, 0.88 ERA, and 88 strikeouts. 5 complete games, 4 of them in the postseason.
Have a day. Have a year.
Helped Carrollwood Day claim their first ever district and region titles. And again, I really think this is a program that, it'll take some time next year. But, I mean, they're a program that
they're on the rise.
Want to go to.
I don't know if they're on the rise. They might. They're close, man. They're right there.
Well, this was the first year they got it done in the postseason. They've always done it well in the regular season, but this is the year that they really, really got it done in the postseason. And I think the guys that are returning, you mentioned Blake Hooker and guys like that, they're going to be hungry, and they're going to want another shot in their time at Carrollwood Day. So we'll tweet that one out.
Tweet that one out. Get that out for Gabriel Partridge. 88 strikeouts, man. Anytime you get up to over 70, 80 strikeouts, it's just super impressive. But it's not all about strikeouts. It's being able to keep the guys off the board and be able to make sure when you're out there on the mound, you give your team the best chance to win. And he was 11-1,
and he did that. I mean, even the state semifinal,
Yeah.
3-1. I mean, he gave him a shot.
He was 11-1. This next guy was 11-0.
11-0. And we talked about Matt Byers earlier,
Boss.
6-0 and stuff like that. But
This guy's a boss.
yeah, and another guy who
Chris, boss.
yeah, Coach Pizio slow plays some things when you talk to him, and I think he slow played Christian, and he does some interesting things. But Christian is a guy who, when the guy who they thought was going to be their number one, Jacob Riley, kind of hit some early struggles. Christian was a guy who stepped up and just did it. I mean, there was no adjustment period. There was no, let me get some nerves settled while I do that. He just did it. And yes, he did start the season, as their number 2. So he got some nice games in the first 2. He got a Blake and a down year for Hillsborough in his first 2 games. And so what did he go out and do? He threw 2 no-hitters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
and just a good kid, a good player, a good teammate overall. And ironically enough, we were just talking about Fernando Muniz, and who were the last 2 people to comment about Nande was Chris and Allison Suarez. So that's indicative of this family and this player and this program. We talked about it before with Strawberry Crest, and I don't think you could look any further than Leto as well with Coach Pizzo and the Falcons. A team, a true team. And just talking with Chris and just being around those guys. And it's weird. Every year, for some reason, I go to Saladino, and I always find myself having a conversation with kids from Leto. They just seem to be the most down-to-earth guys. They're always talking, Coach, what did you see? How's this guy looking? How does he compare? I mean, we were talking about Danny Guthrie before. I remember sitting with some of the guys at Saladino, and they were like, Coach, Danny Guthrie, man, we can't run on it. We got to do some crazy stuff to run on him. But it was just cool because they had nice things to say about the other players. And, Christian Suarez, man, he's a guy that I just really enjoyed. He made covering this game and these kids worth it.
You know what? I think one of my favorite things all season, and it was a game that, obviously we knew what it was going to be going in, but it was a game at Middleton, and I know what you're thinking. Why did I go to that game? I went to that game because a young man named Austin Suarez was pitching. Austin Suarez basically hurt his elbow during his sophomore year and missed most of his junior year getting Tommy John surgery. He came back and threw 4 no-hit innings against them. And every inning, when he went back to the dugout, Christian was the first guy out there. I have a great picture of them, talking and kind of sharing notes after that. And I mean, that kind of speaks to the type of player he is. Let's go through some stats real quick. Obviously, the 11-0, remarkable year, 0.95 ERA, 73 strikeouts, 4 shutouts. As I said, 2 Mercy Rule no-hitters, district and region champion, and the Class 7A state semifinalist.
What a year.
A great year, a really great year. And to wrap up our first team selections, last, certainly but not least, one of the more fun players you're going to watch, whatever he's doing, and that is Strawberry Crest's Damian Torres.
This is one of the main reasons why you can't just look at numbers, and you can't just look at, well, I compare him to this guy, I compare him to that guy, and yes, he did have good numbers, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But the selflessness of a player, the selflessness of a guy who was used to being the number 1 and used to being the big-time starter, and to make the adjustments to be the reliever, to focus on playing more third base, to be a more well-rounded teammate for his entire club. Damian Torres, and just the whole story of Strawberry Crest this year was such an inspirational thing. And just to hear Coach Beatty, one of my favorite coaches, one of my favorite people, just to hear him talk about Damian and the adjustments that he made and the growth that he had. Another guy that, when we go forward, and if there's young players out there and you're watching this and you're thinking about what players to emulate, Damian Torres is definitely one of those guys.
Yeah, and certainly I have no problem being a shameless self-promoter. I would encourage all of you to go to our website and read the feature I did on Damian. An interesting family life. His aunt and uncle have basically raised him. Two wonderful people. His aunt takes photos at every game. His uncle Skip's always there. They are wonderful people, and Damian is a young man who has really grown up. And you mentioned the transition, with Brent May, kind of the meteoric rise he had as a pitcher, and solid performances from Alex Marshall and Cade Manderscheid. Yeah. Damian was a guy who was a starter, and then he was asked to be not just a reliever and not even a closer, a stopper.
Yeah.
He came in some of
really
the ugliest situations and just was completely unfazed, was just a bulldog out there, 7-1 as a reliever. I think he only made 2 starts, I love watching him and Alex Marshall hit as their hats try to escape their head in various phases. But a 1.14 ERA and 58 strikeouts, and then, like I said, a really good third baseman, hit 274, 8 runs, 9 RBIs, 5 doubles, 1 triple, 1 homer. Here's something that stood out to me, man. A high school career 20-game winner.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
Doesn't happen every year.
Yeah.
Every career, for sure.
Yeah, obviously helped Crest to the program's first district and region titles.
Yeah, just a good kid overall, like you said. A guy that's a real indicator of willing to do whatever it takes to help his team win. So.
Yeah, and that's really what he was. I know that I also get to talk to Coach Beatty a lot. He is he wears his heart on his sleeve, man, and I know that he had a number of seniors that he's going to miss, but Damian's he's a favorite of Coach Beatty's, and I think he'll be missed.
You're right, man, and just the whole team. We talked about him before with, another guy that he didn't make in either one of our teams, but he could have, is Derek Barone. He's a guy that, honorable mention guy. But he's a guy that, big home run he had against Wiregrass. As old school to keep this team going and keep them going in the right direction. And a kid, first, third, wherever you need him.
Yeah, you talked about when Damian came to the mound, he made that transition third base, and that's way more of adjustment than just throwing a different glove on.
It's crazy on him. So, Derek Barone, I got to give you some love, my man, because you had a hell of a career. You're going to HCC2, hell of a senior year. A lot of love to my man, Derek Barone.
Absolutely. And that brings us to our Final Four awards.
The big time.
Yeah, it's a big time. Man, this first one was tough. I mean tough. Coach of the Year.
Yeah, we had a couple of different candidates, but
let's talk about a couple of them. Eric Luxus.
Love it. I love it. I think what he did this year, just coming over from Strawberry Crest, learning from Eric Beatty, and coming over and working with his kids, and just after this man wore his emotions on his sleeve and really cared about these kids, man. And that's what you want. You're putting your teenage boys that are in a crazy time of their lives with emotions running wild and feelings that they've never had before, and you put them and you entrust them in a man like this. And I was so impressed by the job that he did this year with Sickles. And I was even more impressed with how he was the day after they lost. He was out at Strawberry Crest supporting Coach Beatty and the Strawberry Crest Chargers. And he was feeling it, man. He was feeling it, and I was feeling for him.
Even more than that, he was out at Plant the next week after the Plant beat them in the region semifinal. He was out to watch them against a brutally tough game against Sarasota.
It just spoke volumes to me, Coach Eric.
He's a baseball guy.
He's a lifer, man.
And you can tell a young coach who's in this for the long haul. And and another one we talked about a little bit last was a fellow UT player that we talked about would be Eric Beatty. Strawberry Crest had some ups and downs during the regular season, but man, when it came to the end of the year, they turned it to a new level. And beating Wharton in the postseason,
it's not easy.
No. They are there almost every year, and they're just prepared. They're a prepared team, and Strawberry Crest was better than them the 2 times I saw them.
It's almost like birds of a feather flock together. You've heard that for years, and it's no surprise Eric Luxus and Coach Eric Beatty, must be something in the first name, that they're such good friends because, I mean, just two of the better coaches and two of the team, man. They were teams this year. I was so happy for them.
And, you know, we mentioned a little bit about Ken Akins at Carrollwood Day. You know, I think to the year that Gaither won their championship with Coach Nelson North, who's another baseball lifer. You know, he was an assistant and pitching coach for Eddie Cartieri at USF. That's where I first met him, and we hit it off day one. And you know, the transition from a coach who's been there a long time, or been in the program is not easy. And I think Coach North did a great job when you talk about taking over a program for a legend in Coach Permui. Certainly Nick Rodriguez wasn't, you know, wins wise, he wasn't where Coach P is, but a guy who started that program and really his kids loved him and stuff. But Coach Akins was there along with him as an assistant for a long time. And man, that transition, they didn't miss a beat. There was no skipping in any of those tires. They were ready. So he was another guy. And our last group, I say group because it was a coaching effort. Coach Fontella. Coach Fontella, and Coach Sagaglione, and Coach Mann, and Coach. Don't
forget about my boy Lou.
Coach Lou, and you know,
everybody, man, Fontella and the whole crew.
Yeah.
Just for bringing us to feel part of the whole state championship. I'll forever be indebted for you guys.
Sure. Jefferson's so much fun. You go there, they got the plaques on the Hall of Fame wall.
That's what it's supposed to be.
The Jefferson is. I was talking to a gentleman at the state tournament who another media source, and you know, he was talking about going there, and it really has this feel of like an old style ballpark.
Yeah.
You know, some of my favorites in the community. I love being out of Brandon and the Oaks. I love Don Powell Field a lot. But Jefferson, man, that is a fun field, you know, and the tradition, you know, to win a first state championship in a program that started in the 40s.
78 years.
A program that, you know, Tony LaRusso was a part of, that, you know, Fred McGriff, Tino Martinez, Luis Gonzalez.
Coach Buck Delatorre, my man.
Sure. I mean, guys, you know, that's four guys who have multiple World Series rings. So anyway, so if we haven't narrowed it down for you, who our Coach of the Year is, let's go away with all the pretenses and let's make it happen.
Boom.
Our Coach of the Year is Coach J.J. Pizio.
Incredible, man. I mean, just this guy, when you're watching him do what he does, and I got a chance to talk to him this year, and he's just so like, but
man, that's not who he is.
No.
He loves to compete, and it is truly, truly fun to watch. And here's the thing. He is so, like, his players love him. I know that you hear it a lot. Oh, they'll run through a wall for a coach or something.
Will.
These guys will literally run through a wall for him. It is such a community thing. There's people that live, you know, there's a player, you know, I'm not going to name specific names, who lives right by Leto, and all of them go over to his house and play video games in between, you know, workouts and stuff like that. Or Coach Pizio loves having the guys over and cooking them meals, and it is a fun experience to be out at Leto. But his attitude, he's a guy who loves baseball tradition. Yeah. He learned from his father, and you know, his mentors were his father and you know, his high school baseball coach, Billy Reed, who we lost you know, in December. And I know that he often told me that he felt like both of those gentlemen were watching over him and rooting for him, and he felt like they were with him. And he's an interesting cat, like when it comes to like the theories. The laying on the ground and just staring at the sky. And it's not a exercise that teaches you how to hit. It just clears your mind and it makes you put away what happened in algebra class, or what, you know, the girl you're in love with, you know, won't talk to you or hasn't returned your text message or something like that. Man, he has a great thing. And then the guys around him, Coach Ailes, his brother, you know, Nevin Griffith, a guy who he coached in high school and was a tremendous pitcher, and he draws these guys back and they want to be a part of him. You know, there were guys who came from from Seminole Presbyterian. They were at this that played for him, 15, 20 years ago, whatever that was, and they were there at the state tournament. He had an armband that one of his players had given him after they last went to the state semifinals for Seminole Presbyterian, and he took that with him to the tournament. And he just does he toes a line that's very hard to do, where he has a tremendous amount of fun with his guys. Mm-hmm. But he'll chew them out at the same respect,
There's a fine line, and I know, because especially you're dealing
you don't want to be their buddy too much.
No, because then they take advantage of you. Parents, you're all shaking it. Oh yeah, I know this. You find that you try to be too much of their friend and not their mentor, and then the kid just they give them an inch, they take a mile. But just the one thing that stood out to me about this year was that crazy game with Winter Haven that Leto won, and when the team won the game, the way that they came together around their coach was incredible. And I think it was either you or Jack Snalverd's dad or Ian, right? I think Ian. Thank you for so much the help this year,
all
Ian.
the tweets.
But just the togetherness of this team and how they surrounded Coach Pizio. Incredible, man. Incredible. You want to talk about making a difference in kids' lives at a school where I'll say it. Some people look down their nose at Leto.
Sure.
Maybe it's not one of the higher income schools, or some people that live around those districts will go transfer and play somewhere else. And I don't know why the hell you would, because you're missing out on a great learning opportunity to be around a person that really gives a crap about your kids.
And he's been there a decade plus now, whereas I think Leto, for a while, it was, maybe in the 90s, early 2000s was a stopping, leaping off spot. And not that that's a bad thing, but man, he's a guy who loves this community.
Yeah.
He talks about coaching at Leto like it is his dream job.
Yeah.
And man, he loves it. He embodies that school. I know their principal is always at their games. She's huge on social media, and she and I know she's always very complimentary of what he does. But I want to point out a situation. As a journalist, you get kind of a unique view, and some things are awesome and some things aren't awesome. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that isn't awesome is having to call in 5 kids after they lost the most important game of their playing career thus far. And that happens at the state tournament. You call 5 kids and their coach into the press conference, and 4 fat schlubs like me ask them questions. And those guys came in, and it was probably the first time I'd ever seen Nandi without the big giant grin on his face. And it was tough to see guys in a moment. But that lasted about 2 minutes. And then Pizio started cracking on him. They started cracking back on him. They made fun. It was, hands down, one of the best 8-minute interviews when he just started talking. We stopped asking questions, and he just gave us 8 minutes. 8 minutes of solid gold, man. Yeah. And it was just impressive. And so Coach Pizio, it was an easy pick when you really started to think about it for me. It was a tough decision in narrowing it down, but man, just the intangibles of what he did was pretty impressive.
Well deserved, Coach Pizio. You earned it, my friend.
Next up, we reveal our 813 player or pitcher.
Pitcher of the year. We're gonna go with this guy first. And a great story about this guy. I asked him after Saladino this year, bro, you've gotten so much bigger since the last time I saw you. What do you eat? And he looks at me and he goes, hitters.
I love it.
Franco, Alonzo, Ravens. Alonzo's had a lot of good players and a lot of good pitchers. You look back at Coach Londy's son, Alex, who just got promoted to AA. Congratulations.
Yeah, Jose Fernandez before him, Tommy Toledo, Alex Panteliotis. I mean, a program that's been around for 15 years or so that has produced, the last 2 were at Florida, very successful at Florida. Obviously, the late Jose Fernandez was a Rookie of the Year, and Alex just got promoted to AA.
Congrats, Alex.
Alex is in Erie. I'm sure he's watching. And just a tremendous year. But let's just look at some of the accomplishments. 9-1 with a .58 ERA, 106 strikeouts to 6 walks. 106 strikeouts to 6 walks.
What?
Yeah.
That is nuts.
It's nasty. It's nasty. 72 innings, only 6 earned run allowed. 2 of those were solo shot home runs.
That was in the game they lost, too.
Yeah, to Palm Harbor. Yeah. A Florida International University signee. I mean, I think a guy who, signability may have been an issue that got drafted late. But, man, he's going to go to the next level. He's big. He's tall. I think he'll bulk up a little bit and, pick up some velocity. And I have high hopes for big things for Franco in the future.
This guy, man, I'm telling you, you want to talk about an imposing figure on the mound. One of the games I really liked the way he pitched was against Guthrie in the Saladino tournament at the University of Tampa. And with a lot of eyes on him, man, he was pumping cheese there. And
in the rain.
Yeah. And it just, the swagger, the confidence. He's a tall, imposing figure on the mound. Yeah. I mean, wow. Good for you, Franco. And, best of luck going forward. I think this guy is going to be a stud moving forward as he goes to the next level. FIU, you're getting a good one, and he's a guy I expect to see in a couple years when they call his name. I know They called his name a little bit later than a lot of people thought, but still, a guy that a great career at Alonzo. Kudos to Coach Londi Faedo, Coach Drumheller, and the gang. Again, I mean, I know compared to some other years, the record probably wasn't where they wanted. But again, a nice long run in the Saladino tournament, make it to the finals there, and just they're a battle.
For the 4th year in a row.
Make
the championship for 4 years in a row.
And you look at the players at Alonzo, the Drumheller kids, Sage and Daly and Nick Gonzalez and those guys, and man, that's another team that I think, you talked before about circle and plan on the schedule. Alonzo's
a team to
that you see them on the schedule and it's like, man, I got to be ready, I remember when I was coaching at Freedom years ago and the one game I didn't go to and we beat Alonzo at Alonzo and our guys were acting like we won the World Series.
Right.
And that's because the year before we lost like 18-0. And that's a team that you get up for because traditionally great coaching staff, solid players that aren't just factors at this level but at the next couple levels, and it's just what you're getting yourself into. It's not going to be an easy day when the Alonzo Ravens are the team in the other dugout. So
no, and another team, just you mentioned it, you mentioned Coach Faedo, but a whole slew of great coaches.
Yeah,
and they do it right. And Franco, he got to study a little bit at the feet of Alex Faedo, and he was a guy who really, man, just stepped up and can't say enough good things about him. So that brings us to our hitter of the year. Wonder who that's going to be. Our hitter of the year, Connor Scott.
C. Scott. My man.
Yeah, I mean, Connor Scott, it kind of goes without saying, obviously his season was upended a little bit by a hamstring, a pulled hamstring. And here's a guy who, 40 scouts a game, every game.
Yeah.
Every game, watching his every move. And he injured himself trying to leg out a infield single. Here's a guy who was the whole season a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
The whole season, and he's in there in a game, granted a district game, but a game that was in the regular season that didn't really mean as much as his future did, and he's trying to leg out. I think the thing that stood out to me, well, let's just go through the numbers, why we picked him. In just 20 games, he hit .526.
Jesus.
He hit .526 in 20 games. That is 30 hits in 20 games.
He had 30 hits.
In 20 games.
We talked about 30 being a good number, and we're talking about
we talked about it for 28 to 30 games.
Yeah.
But for just 20 games, very impressive. 19 RBIs, 20 runs, 5 home runs, 4 doubles, 2 triples. Another guy who'll take his walks, 17 walks, and 6 stolen bases. I think speed is something that people don't talk about with Connor very much. I think the first step might not be the exactly, but man, he gets there fast. He gets up to the right speed fast. And obviously we all know that Connor was a first round draft pick by the Miami Marlins. Apologies. Number 13 overall. He's a millionaire. It's nice. It's nice. And man, another guy, we talked about Fernando Muniz. The Marlins put up a great photo after he had signed on the dotted line, hitting on the cage, and I didn't know his mouth was that big. He was smiling so big. And I think the thing that stood out for me is we kind of talked about an injury, how injuries affect guys. And you see it, especially a guy like him who's got this future, who has this future in baseball, that an injury like a hamstring injury, that's it, you shut it down. And there was no part of shutting it down for Connor Scott. He sat on a bucket and sat next to Coach Braun and the other coaches, and he asked them questions, gameplay questions, what their thought of. He coached third base for a game. Mm-hmm. This wasn't a guy who was sitting at the end of the dugout, just checking his Twitter and stuff like that, or being a distraction to his teammates. He called his teammates to task, and he was there every day. And then he came back. And I saw the Steinbrenner game. Were you at the?
Yes.
The mm-hmm. He hit a home run, and he hit a single, and he was there. He wasn't 50%. He wasn't anywhere near. Yeah. He was in pain. He was playing in pain, and he had to miss the district final, but he came back in their region games and just an uber competitor, and there's a reason he was selected. And
yeah, I mean, a lot of guys, and you kind of beat around the bush a little bit there. There's a lot of guys in that situation, Jared, where you're a first-round guy. How important is high school baseball in the grand scheme of things?
Sure, especially as long as the season goes. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of guys would have shut it down. A lot of guys would have been like, deuces, thanks, high school baseball, appreciate you, see ya. But he didn't do that. And Connor, another guy that I've known for a very long time. And a couple of things that really stood out to me, the game earlier this year when they played Jefferson, pretty good game.
Yeah.
Only guy out there stretching for Plant, doing some extra stretches, was him.
Really? Okay.
Working on his base running, knowing that every single inch was going to count when you're facing a guy like Mikey Dominguez. And I just remember the first time I met Connor, and it was funny that his dad, Mike, brings him on. He's like, yeah, he's been a pitcher a little bit, but he really can't throw strikes. And Connor's like throwing the ball. It's going off the back cage. And everybody's like, take him out. I'm like, why? Time to learn. Get out there. Mm-hmm. And he just kept throwing. And he was a member of our 2011 Pony World Series team. I know I'm bringing it up a lot, but you guys are all graduating. This is the last time I'll be talking about it.
Well, Jay's going to be in trouble. He needs to start coaching again.
I know.
He needs new guys.
I need some new World Series.
I
call them my guys. It's not, journalistically correct, but I'm not a journalist. So
yeah, but you do a great job.
I'm a radio guy, not a journalist, so that's fine.
Hey, man, if you don't want us to love guys like we love them, be that next guy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Separate yourself. And I love the photo you put up a couple days ago on your Facebook of all the guys at the Rays game.
Yeah.
And he was one of them.
He was
lovingly called Bambi by his teammates the first couple of years. Just a really, 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 really good young man. And I'm excited for him. And I know Coach Braun. I mean, let's talk about Plant real quick in the fact that Pete Alonso. I mean, Dominic Smith was the Mets' first baseman of the future until Pete Alonso just decided to go bananas.
Yeah.
And then Connor Scott's doing what he is. Preston and Kyle Tucker. I mean, there's a chance the Plant has
I know.
5. Michael Givens. There's a chance Plant has 5-6 major leaguers.
That's right.
In like the span of the next 5 years.
Bobo, the old Twins. You got that right, bro. The old Twins over at North Tampa. Connor, man, just an unbelievable kid. And excited to see him play at the next level. He shut down in our Pony World Series. He beat Mexico, and I always thought that was like one of the biggest games he's ever going to play in. Little do we know.
Sure.
That'll just be a small footnote. And another quick story on Connor. One year we were 11 playing 12-year-olds, and he hit 8 home runs in 4 games.
He did what now?
8 home runs in 4 games. It was just one of the most incredible things I ever seen. Playing against older kids.
Sure.
And we played a guy, and he was like, we want to play on a big field. I'm like, you're 12, we're 11. Are you sure? We beat him 10-0, and Connor hit a home run in the first inning. And it's just like, that's Connor Scott. We always knew. And that's the thing. It's a lot of dads came up to me. And you remember Jarrett Candy, played for Hillsborough last year. His dad, Joe Candy. Yo, bro, Joe Candy, bro, you're probably going to watch this, bro, so you're going to love my impression, bro. But he talked about when Jarrett came to play with us that the first kid to come up to him and talk to him was Connor Scott. He said, Jarrett, put your cleats on, let's go warm up. And stuff like that. Those are the little things, man. It's great that you bat at 526 and get drafted by the Marlins, but it's the intangibles. It's how you treat people.
Sure.
And he treated people with such reverence and such kindness that stuff, I'll just never forget it. Absolutely. He's a guy I'll never forget. And a guy that, he texted me last week, sorry, Coach, trying to get back to you, but I was talking to Jeter. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I mean,
it's okay. All right, that's fine.
I loved our time, and now I'll Jay obviously has a long-term relationship from coaching him, but I will be that guy when the Marlins come to the Rays.
Yeah.
I'll be down there at the dugout trying to get my handshake and selfie with him.
There you go.
For sure. And that brings us to our last and our biggest award, our most valuable player. And I think this one was an easy pick. Obviously the other guys did tremendous. Everyone we mentioned, we thought about all of them, but this guy just separated himself. And although we look at the regular season and we try not to weigh things too much heavily in the postseason, you win a state championship, you lead your team, and you are our most valuable player. Congratulations to Robbie Martin.
Just a guy that, whether it's coming out of the bullpen or whether it's being a big bat, he just did whatever it took to win. And it's so impressive with Robbie is we had him on the air a couple of weeks ago after they won.
Right.
And he talked about them winning the state championship and how it meant something to the team in 1985 that got so close with Tino Martinez and Luis Gonzalez. And we didn't ask him. He just came, unprovoked and said, this is for the 85 team. And just the willingness to, we talked about this too, he hit so many home runs last year. I asked him, it bother you? He goes, Jay, I don't care. Yeah. I just want to win.
Yep.
I want to do whatever it takes to help my team win. And that's exactly what he did.
It's absolutely
Incredible,
what he did. I mean, he hit a home run and then pitched the final 5 innings of a state championship game. And he came in relief in the state semifinal.
Yeah.
He had 41 hits. We talked about 30 being an amazing number.
40.
A.J. Mathis right there at 40. He had 41 hits, 32 runs scored, 23 RBIs, a 446 average, 4 home runs, 6 doubles, 2 triples, 7 stolen bases. He made 13 appearances on the mound, 2-1 with a .95 ERA, 3 saves, and 29 Ks in just 23 innings. And, just another shout out to my man, Will Turner, on some great photos. And then there's a photo I took of him in my spring ball thing. So, but just a leader. I mean, a guy who is in the dugout, talking to somebody every time. He's not messing around. He's not going to be the chant guy. He's not going to be the rally guy. But he's going to lead by example. And man, don't shirk your responsibilities around a kid like that. Yeah. He's busting his butt because he will call you to task. And a very deserving state champion. And our most valuable player.
Another Florida State guy, man.
Yeah.
You got the
I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm definitely happy.
Another guy, Robbie, I've known since he was, 6-7 years old. We always played against him and the Romano brothers, who both graduated from Hillsborough last year, the Tampa Threshers. It was always such a battle. And there was nothing you could do to get Robbie out. Throw him inside, throw him outside. His dad used to get mad, they're trying to pitch around you. I'm like, hell yeah, we're trying to pitch around you. And your kid hits the ball everywhere. There's nothing you could do. But just a very mature approach to the plate. And he's another guy, man. Florida State, good year this year. I know they wish they would have went farther, but the cavalry is coming, man. Yep. There is more great players coming. I mean, we've already mentioned, Jack Anderson, Robbie Martin, A.J. Mathis, McGuire Weaver. I mean, there's 4 guys right there. They can make big-time contributions next year. So, Robbie Martin, congratulations. MVP, you've earned it, man.
Absolutely. And we'll be posting the all tournament team probably about 20 minutes after we end the live thing, and you can get a better look. But because I don't think this is going to come up super well on our honorable mention, we have 3 pages of honorable mention. We'll you want to just pick out a couple guys and name them? Or,
yeah, I mean, we mentioned, we'll just go across. Alonzo, we talked about those guys before. Ryan Drumheller, Stajan Daly, Nick Gonzalez. Mind you, these are all backwards right now. You can see them because of the camera.
But we're reading them backwards.
We're trying to do our best.
Berkeley Prep, we talked about catchers.
Yes.
And it was painful to leave a guy like Jacob Hines, who, by the way, drove in 30 runs this year with 28 hits for Berkeley Prep. Sam Bennett killed it on the mound for them early in the year. He had a great showdown right at the beginning of the year against Carrollwood Day versus Frank Fury, where both of them went out and dealt. And I don't think either one of them got the decision because I think it went to extra innings.
Yeah, a couple other guys, too. Also Carson Weekly, one of my old guys, going to University of Chicago. Good luck with that, my friend. Cambridge Christian, we mentioned them before. Austin Carter, Hessinger, Mike McCarty, Ethan McCoy, Jonah Rawls. Another really good team to watch and to be around.
A fun team to watch. Yeah. And then, Bloomingdale, we mentioned the defensive 10 guys, and then we mentioned Adam Ganella and guys like that who stood out for us. But, Bryce Hazard, Jackson Hobbs.
Saladino.
We mentioned Nico Saladino. Obviously, the name rings a bell for even the most casual fan in our community. But a young man who's an excellent shortstop. And their arms were banged up, and they needed somebody at the second half of the season, and he just went out and went 4-0. Yeah, just went 4-0 on the mound, won some big games for him. Brandon, it was a tough year. A young man, we mentioned Jermaine White, but a guy I think deserves a lot of credit is Vildiomar Roman Morales.
Yeah.
A tremendous year on the mound for them. It was a rough year for Brandon. Yeah. It was, Coach Balmer, it was his last year, and so now thing, and then obviously. Gaither, always a good team, a region qualifier. Jordan Williams stole a bunch of bases. We also added Derek Crum and Javier Dayan.
Keep an eye on Crum. This is one of the better pitchers around. His arm's a little banged up, but once it gets right, he's going to be a really good factor for them next year. Also a guy that's coming into his own at the plate. Keep an eye on Derek Crum. That's one of my guys to watch. In Hillsborough, shout out Terrence Dostin. He's going to be playing football at the next level. He's getting offers from everybody.
Everywhere.
And Elijah West and Aaron Jensen. He was the catcher on that really good Hillsborough team last year. And he did some really good things this year, going out into the field, playing some short, playing some third.
And
I got to shout out Aaron Jensen, man. Good year for AJ.
And Elijah West coming in this year from Blake to Hillsborough was a doubles machine. Another guy who's got a chance to play over at HCC. So we'll go to our next slide. Obviously, Jefferson, you win a state title, and a lot of guys have roles in that. And I mean, that was a team that we mentioned the 40 hit guys and the 30 hit guys, and then Jake Coleman, a guy who kind of gets a little overlooked, but had a great year. Oscar Galvez, the big
time hits,
big time hit, the game winner,
OG,
and just a smooth transition. Coach Lou Maggio, he says he's Luis Gonzalez all over again, just smooth hands thing. Sal Vega, a freshman.
Home runs.
2 home runs in the region quarterfinal, region semifinal, and the state semifinal. So some fun guys there. Jesuit Will Swantek, another guy who came in some really tough situations and did really kind of bulldogged it out for Jesuit in some things. Obviously King. At the end of the year, they just ran out on pitching, but some good years. On the corners with Keon Floyd and Zarian Brinson. Jamarcus Lyons moving to second base. Did a great job. A big physical body to play second base, and he did it admirably. And Jake Cordell, their catcher. And then write it down right here, JJ Pizio. He's a big proponent of this. A team to watch next year will be Leonard. They've each year they've gotten incrementally better. Kennedy Duran, another area that's diverse, and a huge migrant farming population, and what he's done is put together a very steady team. I think they're on the cusp there. Some good pitching. Edward Turan, I think, is a guy who people are going to take notice of next year. Obviously, Yo-Yo Nunez is a tough, old school style of player. The Leto guys we mentioned, Chicolito here, Jacob Riley, long hair, skinny, just he struggled at the beginning of the year, had 2 rough outings in the Saladino, but when it comes to the end of the season, he was outstanding, and just another guy who's unflappable and stuff like that. Josh Cruz and Jorge Carrero, two big seniors, two big parts of that. Newsom, we talked about them. Josh Koslow, another guy. I saw him have a big home run early in the season against Robinson, a talented player. We talked about Chase Sanguinetti at Plant, but Gabriel Kona is a junior.
Yeah.
Very, very, very baseball build. He looks like a baseball
Connor
player.
Scott told me that he's one of the hardest working guys in Tampa Bay. So that's another guy to keep your eye on.
JD Urso transferred in.
JD, my man.
And, a good guy up. We go to Plant City, a couple seniors there, Kate's Schisler.
I like TJ Gaynor, man.
TJ Gaynor,
I'm a big TJ Gaynor fan. He just committed somewhere too.
Yeah, started the season really well, and man, Plant City, another team that is on the cusp, and they need to just kind of find a way to get through that district tournament, and I think they could surprise some people. We mentioned Riverview. Some talented guys there. Reagan Jorgensen, his brother Mac Jorgensen too, the talented player. The Crest guy we've kind of talked about. Houston Richter had a good year for Steinbrenner. Is kind of their ace. A tough year for Steinbrenner. As a whole in a district with a region finalist and a team that won 22 games. So
not easy.
And then Sickles, we talked about all those catchers. Danny Bernstein's another guy, a great backstop. Just a guy who's not afraid to
never seen this
stick
many
his
good
nose
catchers,
in the dirt.
man.
No, me neither.
So many good
me
catchers.
Neither. And Tyler Green's, Trey Bacon, Tyler Green, those are young guys who are going to have an impact for a couple years to come. Let's see. Let's move on to our last one. Just a couple ones here. RJ Del Rio, a tough year for Tampa Catholic. Tough year offensively, stuff like that. RJ, he stepped up big in those games against Jesuit. That's a big game in this community. Jesuit, Tampa Catholic, and the Crusaders got both of those wins.
It meant a lot to TC this year.
I think it did. Yeah,
it really did.
RJ
did. Had a great year. Julian Pichardo came up big boy. Came up big in those games. And the one guy that really stood out to me, Sebastian Figa, their catcher.
Great catcher.
Again, another year would have been maybe a different story. But there's so many good catchers this year. I thought Sebastian Figa was a solid. I think he won their team MVP. Well deserved.
Yeah. And Tampa Prep, a team. We talked about it with Berkeley Prep to be in a district.
Yeah.
Tampa Preps, Berkeley Preps, Calvary Christians, CCC, Brooks DeBardlow, Tampa Catholic, and Ryan Savitt. Landon Shabe's a senior, a guy who's kind of been there. Mm-hmm. He's been the horse they've ridden for a couple of years. Yeah. And we talked about Wharton. I mean, how fun is it going to be to watch these guys the next couple of years? And then Leo Alfonso, just that
guy can rake.
Yeah, just a constant professional. He's their captain. He's the guy who's always out, for the pregame with the team, and he's just a guy who gets it done and leads it. Well,
don't forget about my boy Charlie Very.
And Charlie Very, another good catcher.
Yeah, so many good catchers.
All right, guys. Well,
it's been a while.
This has been a blast. I hope those of you that stuck with us for 2 hours, I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, this will be on our website, posted probably in about an hour. Let me drive home, and I can't thank Jay enough for his support all season long. Will Turner, the other correspondents I had working for me, Nick Nahas, Bob Malone, Mike Communis. This has been fun, and I have really enjoyed it, and it's a unique thing to kind of go out on your own. There's parts of it I love, and there's parts of it that are difficult. But it's so rewarding to see you guys appreciate it and enjoy it, and I'm happy to get to be a very small part in what you guys do, because I enjoy the heck out of it for sure.
For sure, without a doubt, man. Make sure, again, you follow us on Twitter at 813preps. You can follow the station at 620 WDA. You can follow me at JRetcher. We'll have these up on our Facebook page. Once we get off here, they'll be saved on there. You can watch it, but I'm also going to put it up on my page, 620wda.com/JRetcher. We'll social everything out. Make sure we'll put the list down of everybody who won on the teams. 2 hours, so feel free to go out, watch it back again, share this thing on your Facebook, get the word out. But again, thank you so much. Again, we did this. I know there could be some discrepancies. We try to get as many names. I mean, you figure, man, there's 2 teams here. There's over 150 players we probably talked about today, if not more. So we're talking about 200 high school baseball players. We're very lucky and fortunate to do what we're doing right here, and we appreciate all the love and support. And, yeah, man, we're going to take the summer and kind of see how everybody does. And we'll be
Sure.
back again next year.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
See ya.